Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Biz Meds. We are your hosts. My name is Saad,
My name is Darris.
and we are neuroscience business coaches here to give you the minimum effective dose for your business today. And for today's podcast, we're going to talk about how you can achieve the 4-hour work week.
But it's not what you think it is.
Oh, twist right off the bat.
Right off the bat. Yeah, we're going to dive into it right away. And
Yeah.
we're going to talk about the 4-hour work week, which is if you hear that, who do you think of when you hear about
Tim.
Tim Ferris, who wrote a book called The 4-Hour Work Week.
It's a very popular book.
I mean, it was one of the first books, one of the early books that I read that really got me really thinking more so on the entrepreneur's journey and helped me think about more of what the art of possible was when it came to having a business. Because when I grew up, from the time I was 12, I started working in my father's company and I was a bookkeeper. And so this is way back in the day where, computers were still early on and had to learn all sorts of fun stuff. But anyway, and I grew up in a different era where we didn't have the same kind of technology that we had today. And my exposure to business was you go out and you do labor. Like all of the work that we did in forestry was very hard manual labor. And we had some machines, but it was, you had a workforce. It's not like today where you could, now essentially you can create content. You can create a whole business just based off of educational material or content and things like that. That was completely not really part of my exposure to business when I grew up.
And all that information is also very readily available if you know where to look.
Yeah.
Like you can at least start somewhere very, very quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially now in this day and age where information is so readily available, right? But I essentially had the classical exposure to business of what most of our parents, it was you actually had a physical business that and you created a product, right? We created logs for the sawmill, paper chips for the paper mill, or wood chips for the paper mill, and all these other things. So it was, by every sense, a traditional business. If you didn't produce something, the mill wouldn't buy it. You didn't get paid.
Yeah.
And so then when I'm early on, and I'd already been helping run one of the largest privately held forestry companies in Canada, is that then I had exposure to this book and I was like, oh, wow, it just really pushed my boundaries of what I actually understood business could be and to be. I was like, oh, wait, hold on. We got this thing called the internet now. And, people actually are buying things on the internet. And I think back to the early days of when I first got my first credit card and I was all excited. I got my first credit card and I went online and
just buying everything.
I won't kid you not. This actually kept me from buying a lot of things off the internet early on. Was I got scammed my first purchase. And it was this workout program that it was like essentially on the back of a magazine. And you're like, oh man, like it was all these exercises going to help become this strong dude and everything. And I got hooked by the marketing copy and I'm like, I went online and I bought it. Nothing ever. And I actually have never talked about that before. It was one of those silent lessons. I was like, I kind of knew when I did it, I was like, this could be a mistake. I was right. It was a mistake. But I took that lesson to me like for a long time. But it also probably prevented me from taking advantage of a world that, I didn't really know existed or had very little exposure to. And then, suddenly here I am, now reading the 4-hour work week and Tim's whole idea was you can build a business that you would theoretically only have to work 4 hours a week in, which is how that whole idea got popularized. And then there was a whole rush of people out there now that they call them digital nomads. They work very little. Their whole businesses are remote and they just live in places that have very low cost of living. And they work internationally and do things like that. So it is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I had that exposure similarly. Like I was talking to an entrepreneur at the time and, they were like, hey, you should read this book and it's going to open up your mind to like what the perfect word is like the art of possible, like what you can do. And you don't have to live in this, like this
9 to 5
yeah, this
framework.
9 to 5 framework, and like trying to find a different word for that. But 'cause for some people, like that's all they want to do. They love it.
That's
right?
great.
But for people that that want to be entrepreneurs, like they don't want to be limited to just that, right?
No, instead,
And yeah,
instead of working 9 to 5,
yeah,
they
you're
work
working 12 to 12. You're never off the clock.
Never off the
Sounds
clock.
So much fun.
and way more stress,
Yeah.
way more babysitting, a lot more responsibility for what
Exactly.
feels like a lot less return.
And the idea of the 4-hour work week is what romanticized that for me even more. Aside from like just wanting to do something on my own, then like layer that book in. It's like, oh, it's actually possible. It can really happen, right?
Well, I think you said it romanticized, but it also, what it did was it captured the idea of freedom,
Mm-hmm.
right? The freedom to, go anywhere and work from anywhere, and
Exactly.
that your business could actually grow without you, or work without you, which is the whole kind of point of why people try to go into business, right? Is that it allows them to achieve a lifestyle. It helps them lead a certain lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that may, whatever that may be, might be a much larger purpose, and that's fine. But very selfishly, a lot of people yearn for freedom. And so why do they want to be an entrepreneur? Is they feel like that is the best ticket for them to achieve that freedom
Mm-hmm.
in a much faster timeline than working in a job for years and years, freedom 55 or 60 or 65, retiring, and hopefully have enough money saved by then.
Exactly. Yeah.
So today we get to talk about achieving the 4-hour work week, but it's not what you think.
Elaborate. You've piqued my interest.
Well, I
sire.
mean, would it surprise you if I said that most business owners already have a 4-hour work week?
What? We just made a joke about the 12 to 12.
Okay, well, let's dive into that.
Right.
Most business owners actually already have, I'll say, 4 or 5 hour work week. And what I mean by that is that when you look at what you're actually focusing and the work that you're actually doing, the most valuable work that creates leverage or that moves your business forward purposefully, is you get maybe about an hour worth of total focused work done per day, because we're distracted on average about every 11 to 15 minutes, somewhere around in there. And it usually takes us about 18 to 23 minutes to get back into focus. Mm-hmm. So like when you're being distracted that many times, it takes so long to actually get focused. When you look at most business owners, they're just constantly running from thing to thing to thing, mm-hmm. and not setting aside time to actually do high leverage, deep work. And so as a result, they get maybe an hour a day. So we say you already have a 4 or 5 hour work week, but you're spending 40 to 80 hours to get it. Right. So you already have it.
Yeah.
But
I see what you
it
did
comes
there.
at a cost.
Yeah.
You're actually spending 40 to 80 hours to get your 4 or 5 hours of work, mm-hmm. done.
Yeah.
And that's why we say you can achieve it. Like, you're already achieving it, but you're not getting you only have to work the 4 or 5 hours a week.
Exactly.
You're missing out on all the other things, is that because you're spending so much time on very low leverage tasks, and that could be for for many, many reasons why.
Yeah.
You didn't know how to hire, so you hired the best you could with the knowledge and skill that you had. So maybe your team doesn't perform like
on the level
well as well as they could, or that you would like them to, which is usually the case.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're a product of our knowledge, skill, and experience. And so we only know what we know. And so most people tend to hire below.
Yeah.
We have this aversion to hiring or knowing how to hire really great or attract really great talent.
Yeah.
So we tend to, it's the photocopy of the photocopy of the photocopy. Yeah. And it just gets blurrier and blurrier and blurrier. And then we allow that process to happen in the business. Yeah. And there's just a whole lot of skills that come with running a business that you just didn't have in most cases. So the ability to sell, to market, all those things, create systems. So there's a whole pile of things that just happen. And now you're living most of your life at the effect of all these things. So what are you going to do? You run from fire to fire and you become a firefighter. You're just putting out fires day in and day out. And so when it comes down to the math, is you lead a highly distracted life, whether intentionally or unintentionally. You may have some other vices like doom scrolling and trying to get some really good dopamine hits during the day because
trying to figure out your next routine.
Yeah. Oh, we had to go back to that. I was over it, man. That was like a week ago. It was like a couple weeks ago now. And yes, that maybe that routine. But we're engaged in all sorts of things that don't really help us, or we feel are important and are really time sensitive, but they're not. And I feel like we could probably spend 1,000 episodes going through each one of those. What they could be. It's how have you trained your team to problem solve? Do they come to you with all the problems, and how do you then get out of that routine of you being the problem solver versus, hey, I hired some great talent. You're the expert. Or how do I then help coach you to help you start figuring these things out? Right. And then how do you get rid of all the non-essential things in your day that aren't really helpful? And then how do you structure it in a way that is going to give you more focused time to put that attention and focus into creating high leverage activities that buy back your time to allow you to grow the business and scale it in a way that's meaningful, that you can actually get more towards an idea of like, hey, I work 4 or 5 hours a week, but it's on the most important things. Right. Or I work 4 or 5 hours a week on really high focus time. And now it gives me the time to do that additional support for those people, or all the, whether it's client facing or labor facing, your team facing stuff.
Yeah. The really good thing you said in there is that resonates with me. Is like a lot of times people end up looking for somebody that is below them. And then when they're not performing at the level or the expectations that they're wanting to have to grow this or scale the business, they'll get pissed off at that person. And they're like, oh, you're not helping me grow my business. Yes. It's like, well, you never chose the right person for that job. So you could now focus on the next level things.
Yeah.
Right? And you're constantly involved in their day-to-day now, trying to help them do good. And in your mind, you're saying that you're very, very busy. You're working a lot on your business. Your business is doing great, but you're just two people doing one job, right?
Yes. Yes. Again, you are. So, I mean, just in this one topic, we could spend days talking about, you say, okay, well, what you said originally at the very beginning actually triggered another thought was, how many times do we hire someone and we expect them to treat the business the way we would treat it when we pay them? Like, we don't pay them like that. We don't reward them like that. They're not incentivized like that. And maybe it's not their passion to want to do that. And so we've not hired correctly in the beginning for multiple reasons.
Right.
And then we have an expectation gap of our people because, hey, I expect you to perform at this level, but we've never talked about that. I don't know if you even want to do that, because I just assume that I bring you in and I exercise my ability to pay you what, quote unquote, the market is. But I expect this superhuman ability from you, but you don't know what you don't know. But I'm expecting you to fill my gaps in, like in my knowledge and expertise, but I haven't done the proper job of actually doing the work of understanding how to do that.
Right.
And so, then you're locked in then you're frustrated.
Yeah.
Because, why isn't this person performing? Well, they're probably performing well for what the original
what you want. Yeah.
What they thought they were brought on to do.
Yeah.
And their skill set.
That's the right word. Yeah.
And that becomes a whole other topic. So there's all sorts of reasons why you're spending 40, 80 hours a week for a 4 to 5 hour work week that you're not getting the benefit of.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you are, constantly running around doing things that you don't need to be doing, shouldn't be doing, or you just didn't know any better when you had it. And you haven't done the work of peeling out all the non-essentials to do that. There's also another one, and this was a coaching session with clients of mine, and we were talking about the idea of, leverage. And so a couple of the game changers, one was when you're training people is I introduced them to the Loom videos of training people.
Right.
And they're starting to really get the idea of, and they said it like, oh, wow, it really takes no additional time to just record it while you're doing the work to show them what you're doing. I said, exactly. So you're not expending any additional energy. You're just recording and talking about what you're doing. And it's being captured, and you're using the AI in there to help you write a procedure or SOP for it.
Right.
And you're able to leverage that to whoever else comes in to learn that skill. They can actually pause it, go through, but you didn't take any additional time to do it. Like that's infinite leverage right there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, wow, this is amazing. I'm like, yes. Because how many times do we spend, like how many hours, wasted time we have to train someone where we're just talking at them and we show them something and then we expect them to memorize it for eternity.
Yeah.
I don't know when the last time someone tried to do that to you and how well did you memorize it? And you're like, oh, unless you're doing it all the time, you don't remember. But I just showed them, use the technology, which Loom is a great one. It's inexpensive. We talked about it before, but like that's huge leverage in being able to like help someone, train someone all the time. Say, if you're missing, you don't have to now come into my schedule, pull me away and distract me from doing I've now given you the leverage. I've given you the technology to continue to learn and do that. And now I've created leverage very simply, right? To reduce that ongoing draw on my time and energy. Right. And then the other part was we've done some huge efficiency work. So we created some massive systems that have saved so much time and energy now, where it used to take, over a month to train someone to do one task. We're now like at a few days. Like that's how massive it is. But there's some other things going on in the business that they're trying to quote unquote problem solve. And in the conversation, the coaching session, we talked about, okay, but how many times are you trying to solve something you don't have the skill set to solve? And you're trying to solve something from your own perspective that you actually don't have the skill set to properly give. I said, hold on. Do you not have someone that has done the development on this stuff and a lot of the technology? Well, yeah. I said, so instead of you and your collective team trying to solve something that you don't have the expertise to, why would you not take that? Here's all the challenges we're having, and then ask them what the recommendations are to solve the problems and what options are there. Oh,
never thought about that.
How much time are you wasting collectively trying to solve a problem that you don't have the skill set to? So that was another idea of how are the things that you're doing are contributing to all this wasted time and effort and busy work that don't actually help you because you're not leveraging someone else's skill set that actually has the expertise to do that.
Yeah.
It could be something simple as, for those of you who are getting more into AI, you can properly frame a question of all your challenges that you're having with something specific, feed it into ChatGPT, and have it spit out to you what the potential solutions are. And
what are the different approaches you could potentially take to that?
Exactly. And help you, give you more perspective that goes beyond what you currently are exposed to. It's you don't know what you don't know. So that is why it's important to leverage the skill sets of those experts that you have or have access to.
Exactly. And so there's been a few times that I've noticed people try to have ego around the fact that like, oh yeah, I didn't use ChatGPT or I didn't use like some type of AI to help me come up with this. I'm like, cool. How long did it take you to get to where you were? 3 hours, 4 hours? Like, it took me 15 minutes to get to the same result.
Exactly.
I have now 3 more hours ahead of you. It's like shit like that really pisses me off sometimes. And if you have the vision of getting to that 4-hour work week, you can't be, trying to feed it or back it with your ego that I have to do everything myself. I got to be involved in it. There has to be a level of thinking implemented that helps you scale to that lifestyle.
You said it absolutely greatly. It's not about your ego.
Yeah.
And a lot of the life of an entrepreneur and the business owner is putting your ego to the side. And it's not your job to be the smartest person in the room. You have to be able to bring smart people together and be comfortable bringing those smart people together because you are aligned to a much bigger purpose, and how do you problem solve to that,
Yeah.
and allow them to do and provide the expertise that they have.
And you said this very beautifully at the beginning of this year. It's like failing faster and identifying that quickly.
Yeah.
That's what you should be focusing on as a business owner and as an entrepreneur. Like you can bring in your specialists to do the implementation and like come up with that. But if it's not working, you got to take that step back and, cut it and take your losses and
take the
read
lesson,
verse. Yeah.
take the lesson,
Yeah,
right? Learn the lesson that you need to learn and move on and do it fast.
exactly.
Yeah. That's a lot of the key thoughts around, when we're talking about that, the lifestyle of the business owner. It's that, hey, I had this idea of working the 4 or 5 hour work week. And that's a great thought. It's achievable, but not doing all the stupid work that you're currently doing and trying to be the one that knows it all, instead of empowering others to. A great one is, it actually was the same framework I use, but then just through my work with Dan got improved a bit more. So I always, when I talk to my managers, I would say, okay, listen, we're not just coming to talk about problems. You're not just bringing me problems. I don't need you. Like, why are you a manager if you're just bringing me problems? I know what the problems are.
Yeah.
You're going to come with what's the problem and what are your 3 proposed solutions? And then we can work through that. And then through my work with Dan, he's like, hey, what's your 1-3-1? What's the problem? What are your 3 solutions and what's your recommendation? And I was like, that's a game. That is a really good one, because now I'm encouraging you and leaning on your expertise, because I've brought you in as an expert. And so I need you to be an expert. I need you to show leadership, but also help solve the problem. What's your recommendation? So that's really great ways you can start to work with your team to say, okay, instead of you taking everything on, it's how do you get them to help now be an active participant in solving the problem? What's the problem? What are the 3 solutions? What's your recommendation? Get that, boom. And you'll start to train and coach people on that, and it'll help them come to you with better, and you'll be able to make better decisions. And it won't take hours and hours and hours of sitting down and you trying to figure out things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just like when you were saying that, I was just envisioning like the perfect business. Like, because if that was how it worked and it all just like trickled all the way back up to the top throughout each different team, it'd be a well-oiled, smooth.
You would reduce operational drag so much, because you are an organization that now brings solutions and recommendations forward. You don't just sit there and talk about problems all, because what you focus on expands. So if all you're doing is talking about problems, all you're going to identify is more and more problems. But if you train and develop your people to start thinking in solutions and recommendations, then you'll be able to make better decisions, faster decisions, right? And you can question some of those decisions, but you're getting at and you can then help to think about thinking frameworks and reasoning and that's more helpful to help develop people than just sitting there and be like, oh, that's a stupid, we don't know how to solve this problem. You'll get there much faster because you'll tap into people's creativity and wanting to solve problems versus having an organization where everyone looks to you. What's the point?
Yeah.
And that will finally move you from having to spend 40 to 80 to 120 hours to get 4 to 5 hours worth of work, where you can then work 8 hours a week or 11 hours in a week and work 1 day a month to get all of your most important stuff done, and then focus on helping build your team, because you're focusing that on the most highly leveraged activity possible, because you're leveraging flow, you're leveraging the power of the 1 month day to create so much leverage in your business that you keep growing and growing and growing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's ultimately how you can work, 1 day a month instead of like 4 hours a week. You can work 1 day a month on the most important things.
Yeah.
So if you haven't realized it, that is how you actually get a 4-hour work week or a 1 day work month. And you can do it, and it's achievable. And the best thing about that is actually based in science, because flow is a neuroscience. It's actually anyone can achieve flow state. You just need to know the ingredients and how to do it. That's the best thing, is that anyone can do it. And we're here to help you do that. So if you haven't registered for the masterclass on how to reclaim at least 8 hours a week back of your time and your sanity, register down below in the show notes. There's a link for that. It's free. Go ahead, sign up for it right now.
Yeah.
If you've been with us since the beginning, thank you. If you just joined us, thank you. We're Biz Meds. I'm Darris.
My name is Saad.
And we're the Neuroscience Business Coaches to help you give you the minimum effective dose to help you scale your business. And again, to our moms, we thank you. We love you for always being supporting of us. And we will see, actually before that is, remember, you're just one day away from the life you've always dreamed about. We will see you in the next episode.